Missouri Democratic Congresswoman Cori Bush, known for being part of the Squad, will no longer serve in Congress next year. She lost her re-election bid yesterday to primary challenger Wesley Bell. Bush is now the second member of the Squad to be ousted from office this year. New York Congressman Jamal Bowman also lost a primary contest in New York back in June. Our own Hunter Woodall joins us now to discuss all of this. Hunter, good to see you. I know you've been covering all of these races. We just mentioned Jamal Bowman's race last month, or in June rather. Are there any similarities between that race and this race with Cori Bush?
Absolutely. You know, this is obviously, as you mentioned, the second member of the so-called Squad that has been ousted in a primary. I will note, obviously, you know, Representative Bush actually won her way to Congress in a primary in 2020. So obviously that was an upset. Then she unseated an incumbent. But there are some differences too, because both Bowman and Bush brought in some controversies into this race. You know, I'll note CBS News reported in January 2024 that Representative Bush was being investigated by the Department of Justice over the potential misuse of funds. And that obviously, these are controversies that can linger on voters' minds. But also what's happening overseas, the war between Israel and Hamas loomed large in this race, and pro-Israel groups spent heavily to try and oust Bush, similar to how they did with Representative Bowman.
And as we're talking about progressives, we also know that Kamala Harris announced her running mate yesterday, Tim Walz. I know you covered him very extensively as a reporter covering Minnesota. You know, he's been labeled as a progressive. At the same day, you have Cori Bush losing her race. Anything to read into that, or how should we kind of be viewing him in that lens?
Well, we know in politics, progressives are, there's a large tent here, and what you're seeing here with both Bowman and Bush and their losses, I mean, it is notable, but it also shows, when you look at Governor Walz as he had this announcement, he had pledges of support and praise from both Representative Ocasio-Cortez, but also Senator Joe Manchin, which that tells you, that's not often a coalition you see, saying, hey, we're both on the same side here. And I think even AOC noted, obviously, the uniqueness of that. So I don't think this shows a wane in progressive strength, but it does obviously show that you go too far to the left. Voters can respond to that. You have controversies. Voters can have their say. And these primaries, especially low turnout ones with heavy spending, anything can happen.
Yeah, a lot of money in that race. That's really incredible. Speaking of AOC, Alexandria
against them by a big money system of super PACs and difficult to trace political contributions. That to me speaks to the corrupting role of our current campaign finance system and the fact that it is very hard to be a working class American that gets elected to office and stay in office.
It's hard to tell because obviously, what I think is notable here is both Representative Bowman and Representative Bush have been critical of Israel even before, what we saw happen, obviously, October 7th when the war started. But that, criticism ramped up, their concerns about what's happening overseas, ramped up, and also the scrutiny of those views. And, when we see all this outside spending, I mean, I'm looking here, according to Ad Impact, the United Democracy Project, which is linked to the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, spent heavily to oust both Bush and Bowman.